Good evening, everybody. My name is Lynn Heidig, and I'm happy to invite you here to the last of our sessions, of information sessions, about what the role of town manager, town council, form of government is. You'll be voting on the charter question 3 next Tuesday. You're here to get information, and it's so wonderful that citizens are here, even if they sort of have to hang up on their daughters in order to come to find out information that is going to be important for how our town functions and how you live in our town. And I'm thrilled tonight to introduce you to 2 people who are going to give you some great perspective on what a town manager's role is, how it can affect economic development in our town, how it can affect our tax base, the resources that we can put in place if the town indeed votes to hire a town manager, how we can make sure we get the best fit for our town and attract the right candidates. So the experts who are here with passion and intelligence and expertise and listening ears so that you can ask them all the questions you want. First, I'd like to introduce, this is Bob Lee. He has been the town manager in Plainville for 15 years now, has a master's in public administration, a style that is dynamic, and he is ready to I would use the word dazzle. How's that for pressure?
I'm a little old for dazzle.
And the other star of the evening is Courtney Hendricson, and she is a former town manager, but now works for CERC, which is
Connecticut Economic Resource Center.
And so her level of expertise is hands-on experience, but also the big picture of networking and resources and how this can affect the roles and the vision and the future of a town. So, Bob, if you'd like to start us off, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
All right.
that's good. And then I'll just supporting.
Well, thank you for that over-the-top introduction. I appreciate it. The Charter Reform Commission, I guess it's called a coalition, is sponsoring this information, public to provide information for the upcoming vote on next Tuesday. And in my opinion, and I've done a little research on Clinton, just to know what I was getting into this evening. In fact, I attended the information hearing last Thursday, just to get a feel for the community and to see, get the tenor of the town and whatnot. And from my perspective, the most important item that you're voting on next Tuesday is question number 3 on the ballot, because that has the most long-term implications as far as your community is concerned. That's my opinion. I'm sure it's shared by some, maybe not all. But my goal this evening is to describe the benefits of the council manager form of government, tell you a little bit about my personal experiences, my philosophy regarding management, which is shared by many of my fellow town managers, describe what I see as the benefits to a municipality, to have a professional manager oversee the administration of your community. I'm going to give you some examples of the work that you would typically see from a town manager. I'll show you some comparative budget statistics. I didn't want to hand them out too early because, kind of spoils the fun, so to speak. And I know Courtney's going to speak a little bit about economic development, and I have some thoughts on that as well. So, as far as what the manager can do with regards to economic development. So I'm going to start off with a question. And other than the people that are involved with the committee, has anybody been here to any of the previous? So you get a little bit of a comparison there. Okay. I will say that I'm going to be kind of freewheeling. You can interrupt me at any time with a question. You don't have to wait till the end. If I say something, you want to challenge me on anything, feel free. I try to be a little bit provocative in terms of my opinions, and I'll tell you my opinions. And I enjoy the back and forth. I'm kind of used to it. But let me tell you that my background a little bit. I've worked in Connecticut, municipal government. I'm going on 40 years. I know it's hard to believe, but And 28 years of that 40 has been as the chief executive officer of the town manager. I graduated from Rutgers College with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. People asked me what I was going to do with a poli-sci degree, and I didn't have an answer to that. But I also got an associate's degree at Eagleton Institute of Politics, which is a very prestigious part of the Rutgers College, and got immersed in a little bit more of the understanding of politics, both at the local, state, and federal levels. While in the early 80s, I was able to go part-time to school and get my master's degree at University of Hartford, and I have a master's in public administration. I am a credentialed town manager. I'm a member of the International City Managers Association, and they have a program for managers to continue to make themselves better, to attend, education programs and whatnot, and if you meet certain levels, you get to be credentialed, and that's usually something that makes you more, I guess, popular, so to speak. I will tell you, real emphatically, that a town manager is hired by the town council to be the day-to-day administrator. The day-to-day administrator. I get my direction, he or she gets her direction from the town council, and is required to follow the duties enumerated in the town charter. And hopefully you've had an opportunity to at least familiarize yourself a little bit with the proposed town charter that would involve the town administrator. He or she is generally appointed based upon knowledge, experience, education, and what is most important in my mind is the fit, the personality of the person. I have seen town managers get hired based solely upon their experience and their resume, and they weren't a good fit for the town, and hence they weren't necessarily successful over a long period of time. So if you really want to find somebody who fits the personality of your community well, that's my opinion. Town manager, he or she also advises the town council with regards to policy and is required to follow their policy direction. They tell you where to go, town manager takes you there. And I can tell you I've been a student of Connecticut management for a long time. And I can tell you that, and this is my opinion again, that as a town manager, I'll get you there faster than any first selectman if that's really where you want to go. I began working as a special projects coordinator for the town of East Hampton back in 1978. I worked under 3 town managers, so I got the opportunity to see different styles and get some experience as far as that's concerned. I became the first town manager, was actually chief administrative officer at the time. They since changed it to town manager while I was there, the title, in Hebron, Connecticut in 1990. Anybody familiar with Hebron? Nice town, right?
Small.
It is small.
Tiny.
And when I went there, well, it's big area-wise,
Yes.
37 square miles. When I went there, they had 7,000 people. And they changed their form of government from a 3-member board of selectmen to a CAO, it ended up being town manager, and a 5-member board of selectmen. And I stayed there for 14 years. And when they hired me in 1990, I competed against 80 other applicants. 80 applicants. I became the town manager of Plainville in 2004. I've been going on 15 years. And a little something about me, which at least 2 people over here are aware of. I have a boat slip at Brewers North Yard. I've been there since 2002, so I'm familiar with the area. From Clinton, probably, well, mostly across the Sound is where I like to go, but I guess if you don't know it already, I'd like to convey to you that town administration is a complicated business. Very complicated. Although in Connecticut, we operate under what's known as a home rule, where you think you can, the home can make up all the rules. It's not necessarily true. That does not mean you can do whatever you want to do. Authority is granted under state statutes, So if you're not granted the authority to do something, you can't do it. Generally, unless somebody, unless you try to get away with it and somebody sues you, but that's a whole different story. You have to follow things like state labor and wage laws. It can be relatively complicated. There are union agreements. Many towns, including Clinton, have several that involve negotiations that follow a specific process with complicated rules. The negotiation process is complicated. And if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, guess what? You don't necessarily win. If win's the right word. There's grant opportunities that come with specific requirements, rules. They don't just hand you the money. You have to deal with things like, overall budgeting, lawsuits, development issues, pollution issues, environmental laws, state mandates that are unfunded, many of them unfunded, by the way, so you got to figure out how to pay for them. Discrimination issues, property taxes, police matters, long-range planning, financing projects, large capital projects, and many others. So it's just going to give you a little bit of a feel if you're not already aware of that. Again, in my opinion, towns are taking significant risk when the chief administrator is someone who does not have experience in the public sector. Significant risk. I say this, and I don't mean to be insulting in any way, but it kind of drives home a point. And that is, and I think I'm the only one who says it, so if you boo me, that's okay. And again, I have been town manager and involved in government for 40 years. I've been around a lot of first selectmen, and there are some really good ones. And I've met a lot of really good ones. But I've met others as well. And let me tell you what I consider the talent pool for a first selectman. Number one, they're unemployed, looking for a job. Number two, they're underemployed, meaning that they want to take this position so I can make more money. Not too many people are going to be working up here and want to make less money. And the third item that I say, they're retired. So that's generally your talent pool for first selectman, in my opinion. When Hebron hired me back in 1990, I had been in government for 11 years. I had the schooling, that we talked about earlier. I had the master's degree, and they weren't requiring a master's degree. I think they were looking for like 3 to 5 years of experience. Generally, here you could probably get 5 to 10 easy. My qualifications in 1990, which was, again, the first town manager or CAO after the charter change, was first and foremost, I'm nonpartisan. I really don't care if you're D and R and I, whatever party or affiliation, if you have any. It really doesn't matter, and that's one of the good things I think about being a town manager. Number two, I had the schooling. I was knowledgeable about all aspects of government. Let me tell you why I think that's important, especially in small towns where perhaps your first selectman or the leaders of the community really don't have the knowledge of the various departments. What I've seen is that it's department heads that are running the town. They're the ones that are making the day-to-day administrative decisions because they have the knowledge, and there's nobody to challenge them. And as a result of that, people get upset sometimes with whether it's the assessor, the tax collector, the town clerk, whether it's the public works director, whether it's the police chief. There's, the accountability, a lot of times the first selectman leaves it up to them because they're the experts. They're not looking at the big picture, they're looking at their particular department. And in many instances that could, that doesn't work too well. I was familiar with large project management experience. Been involved in a large sewer project and some school building projects. By the time I went to Hebron, I was familiar with state agencies. I was familiar with dealing with newspaper reporters on a regular basis. I was familiar with grant applications and grant requirements. I was familiar with lawsuits, believe it or not. Familiar with winning lawsuits sometimes. Familiar with land acquisition. Familiar with regional agencies. When I was in East Hampton, we were part of the Mid-State Regional Planning Agency. Now we have Council of Governments. I have contacts with other town managers and assistant town managers. When I didn't know something, I could go to other professionals. I went into this work because I had a passion for it. I found that I really liked it when I got into it as a special projects coordinator. And so, you know, and as I talked about earlier, I compete against a lot of people both in you know, in Hebron and in Plainville. Plainville was only about 35 to 40, but you know. But in Clinton right now, you got two choices. Horses. So I had the background, day one, working in Hebron. What I didn't have is I didn't know the community all that well. You know, you go into a town. I lived in East Hampton, which is only 2 towns over, so I had some knowledge. I knew some of the people in the town, but I didn't really know the town. And that's probably the downside to a certain degree. But it really depends on your personality as far as how you get involved. Those of you who are familiar with Hebron know that probably the biggest service organization in Hebron is the Hebron Lions Club. They run the Hebron Harvest Fair, 3rd largest agricultural fair in the state. Shortly after becoming the town manager, I became a Hebron Lion, just so I can meet people who I don't normally come into the town hall. But those are the farmers, those are the guys and gals that have lived there for many years. And I'll tell you, they also have pretty strong opinions, and I got to learn from them as well about the community. But on the flip side, they got to learn about me, and they got to learn about their government as well. I told them, I'm the town manager, I'm just here to tell me what to do. And that worked for a little while, of course. Before too long, I was the president of the Lions Club. Shortly after that, I was the superintendent of the Hebron Harvest Fair for 2 years, you know, and I enjoyed that. And I was had a balance, you know, being the town manager and also being either the president or the superintendent of the fair, and it worked out, you know, it worked out. I was a Hebron Lion for 23 years. I moved to Plainville, and I was still a Hebron Lion for 10 years. and I was a president of the Hebron Lions, I became president again, before I left. You know, it wasn't fun anymore. All my friends had left. And, you know, so, that kind of, so, you know, some of us, you know, we do get involved. And I tell town managers, you know, the younger guys, and I deal with the young guns nowadays as well. And I tell them, get involved with the community, you know, in the you know, the fundraising opportunities, those kinds of things, because that's when you get to talk to people that you don't normally see on a day-to-day basis. And some managers stay away from that. Oh, you know, if you're involved with the Hebron Lions and there's conflicts, all that kind of stuff, you got to manage it. You got to manage it. It can be managed. You have to remember your primary role is the town manager in your town. You got to be careful about that. People say, well, you know, if you're not from Clinton, you know, where's the loyalty? I can tell you honestly, I'm eating, breathing, living 24/7 town of Plainville. There's no doubt, well, maybe a little bit of doubt, but if you don't know Plainville, we have one of the best towns in the state, and I can tell you that we like to keep it as a secret so that nobody knows about it or doesn't know too much about it, except our townspeople. You know, we want them to see, and they're pretty happy about it. But I can tell you that we pretty much, as town managers, it's important for us to make sure that our community is successful. I have an open door policy for citizens. If you take the time to come down to my office, and this is many other town managers as well, if you take the time to come down to the town hall, you don't have to make an appointment. That you can walk in the door and have a conversation. You know, and you know, we're so used to being multitasking. We're so used to answering questions, and I'm not nervous about whether I'm going to have the answer or not. Or I'm not nervous about telling them I don't have the answer and let me get back to you. You know, you have to, you know, so, you know, that's from day one in Hebron, day one in Plainville, and people appreciate that. I have a simple philosophy when people come in and have a beef or want to complain about something, and that is, I'm not here as a town manager to convince you that what the town council and the town manager is doing is the right thing to do. We're right and you're wrong. You know, mill rate went up too much. You know, you guys are a bunch of idiots. You know, why'd you do that? You know, whatever the issue might be. Why did you sign that contract? I'm not here to convince you that what we did was right. I'm here to explain to you why we did what we did. And if you walk out of my office saying, I don't agree with them, but I understand why they did it, then I've been successful. I think a lot of times the elected people are more concerned in making sure that they made the right decision. People are afraid to make the wrong decision today. But, you know, so I think managers have a little bit more confidence in saying, hey, this is why we did it, and you don't have to agree with it, as long as you understand. I told you I got involved with the community in Plainville. We have a Wings and Wheels. We actually bought an airport. I was there when we bought the airport. It was only $8-point-something million, and the federal government gave us 95% of it, and the state gave us another 3.5. That sounds good. They paid for 98.5% of it. We bought an $8 million investment for $100 grand. That's the upside. The downside is we got to run the airport. So we had to learn on it a little. It's still working. It's still in the block, and you know. But we run an event up there, Wings and Wheels, where we have a fly-in, and you know, it's an event for the community because it's your asset. Come in, see the airport, watch the planes land. We have a car show at the same time, and my wife got involved, and we were one of the, you know, so we volunteered for that. We just started a pumpkin fest downtown, and you know, when they closed the center of town, and you know, we volunteer for that, and we try to be as visible as possible. My wife, I don't know why she joined the Rotary Club. She's actually got a more outgoing personality than I do, and she's scheduled to be the president of the Rotary Club next year. I don't know how that's going. I believe that communication is very important. I don't know how much I don't know if there's a Clinton Talks page, you know, where people get on and they like to moan and groan a little bit about town government and that kind of thing. We have a Plainville Talks. There's usually one in every town. It might be a little different name. You know, and I talk to other managers and say, you know, I don't get involved with that social media stuff. My philosophy, and other managers, you know, and that's why I'm talking about the good fit. If you're ever going to hire a manager, I would ask them, you know, what do you think about social media? I believe it's a new form of communication. I don't tweet. I don't think that's, you know, but as far as that is concerned, and you don't get overly defensive. You just, again, give them the information, give them the facts. Because the great majority of people out there just want to know what's going on. They want to know really what's going on. And I got people coming up to me all the time and says, I'm glad you're on Facebook because, you know, somebody starts complaining about something, you get on there, you give them the facts, and, you know, things quiet down. And if you let that go, and it builds, next thing it's spilling over. So, you know, so I like to communicate both if you walk in the door, I go to, you know, if organizations invite you, I usually try to have them invite the chair. You know, it's the chair or the council that runs the town. You know, it's really the leaders of the town. But if they can't make it, I'll go, or I'll go, you know, supplement with them. But, you know, I don't want to make people, you know, think that I'm making all the decisions, even though it may appear that way. In fact, the council gets accused all the time. You're just doing what Lee tells you. But, you know, I don't know. If I did that all the time, I probably wouldn't be there. I'm a patient person. And you have to be patient in this business. Government moves slow, and you want government to move slow. If government moves too fast, then you can get yourself in trouble. But, on the other hand, you can miss opportunities. So there's a balance there. I'm a very ethical person. You know, the ICMA I talked about earlier, we have a code of ethics that's drilled into us from day one. And if we somehow don't follow that code of ethics, we can get kicked out of our, you know, out of our organization. And if I'm not a member of ICMA, I can tell you if I go to another town, it's going to be very difficult to get a job in another town if you've been kicked out of the ICMA. So you say, well, what's the big deal? You're not in your association anymore. Yeah. And I don't have a livelihood necessarily either if I want to be a town manager somewhere. We're trained really to do our homework. How does things work with a town council? And I think this is a couple of big benefits here. One is I treat every town council member equally. Not just the chair, all 7 of my council members I treat equally. They all get the same information. Doesn't matter if there's, one of the quirks in Plainville, under our charter, we have 7 town council members, and the only way you can pass a motion is with 5 votes. 4 votes, the simple majority doesn't pass a motion. Any motion has to get 5 votes. That's great if there's 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats, or 5 Democrats and 2 Republicans, but it's not too great when it's 4-3. You talk about, you know, reaching across the aisle. Well, I can tell you that I'm the one who, at least in my town, in that situation, who bridges a lot of those types of conversations. Because there's times when people get mad at each other because of whatever. And sometimes it's the manager who makes the phone call and says, well, that person really didn't mean that, you know, and this is their, you know, and so we're there to help take kind of the politics out of it and remind them that what we're trying to do is what's best for Clinton. What's best for Plainville, what's best for Hebron, as opposed to what's best for perhaps, your ego or whatever. All emails go to all council members. I call each town council member before the meeting. We have meetings on the first and third Monday. I call them Monday morning after sending them a package on Friday. Anything in the package, got any questions, any issues? So I pretty much know we can't meet ahead of time and make decisions, but I can pretty much count votes, before the meeting and know, what to expect. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I'm going to ask you this question at the meeting. I know you know the answer, but I just think it's important for the people to understand it, and they kind of give you a little bit of a heads up. So a council meeting is really for the conduct, doing the business of the town. We do take some public input, and we have our regulars. And one of the good things about it is the regulars usually go after the manager. They usually pick on me. I'm to blame for everything that goes wrong in a town, and somebody else is responsible for everything that goes good in the town. But it's usually not me, but that's okay. That's what I get paid for, and I have broad shoulders. I meet with the town council chair a week before, several days before the meeting to sit down and go over the agenda, set up the agenda, and all the other council members are certainly welcome to attend if they want to. It's not a secret meeting as far as council members are concerned. As long as I don't have a quorum, we're all set. Again, I'm available to the council 24/7. When I go on vacation, and I talked a little bit about voting, I like to go away for a while. Basically, town council members and staff contact me via cell phone, text message, email, and I generally call into the office. And it's, when I talk about myself, I'm just trying to give you an idea of just how town managers, act and work in their communities. I generally call in maybe every 2 days just to touch base if they haven't contacted me. And very rarely do I get a call because my staff is pretty much top notch. People are working in Plainville because they want to work for the town manager. And some of them want to work in Plainville because of who the town manager is. But, staff, I have an open door policy as well. We have weekly staff meetings of the directors. And most of that is not necessarily to tell them what to do. It's more to hear what's going on. So everybody of the various departments, including the police chief, including the parks and rec director, including the public works, including the senior center, the finance director, is there. When we talk about what's going on in each department, everybody's aware of it because it's not uncommon for the senior center director to be asked something about, something that's happening in the police department or something that's in public works. So it helps people to be more knowledgeable and they feel like they're part of a team. I do stop in and visit in their environment. I understand that everyone makes mistakes, so I don't overreact to it because they've been around it long enough. Even though I tell my staff, you make the mistake, guess who gets blamed for it? It usually isn't you, and it usually gets blamed to the town manager in a very public manner. So, that's not a big deal because they've been around for a while. I do have yearly evaluations. I get, we talk about goals, accomplishments, I get feedback from the council. I do let my staff make decisions. There's only one caveat, you have to make the right decision. What's the right decision? That's up to the manager to decide, but I let them know, you can make all the decisions, but if you don't make the right decision, then we'll have a conversation. As far as unions are concerned, and we have 3 that I deal with directly, police, public works, and town employees. I don't have an administrators union. I don't think I ever will have one because of our team, but never say no. So I have 3 unions. Of course, the Board of Ed has several as well. You have to understand the rules, talk a little bit about that. You have to be consistent with negotiations. You can't say to public works, hey, I'll give you 2%, then the police come in and you say, I'll give you 3%, and then you come in and you say, well, I'm going to change your health insurance, but it's got to be consistent. It's important. And that's where I draw the line. I say, I can't give you any more than what I gave them. And generally that works. I've been in arbitration once with the police union about switching over health insurance, and we won. The town won, and it was kind of a landmark decision with regards to high deductible health plans. And basically it was because we put on a good case in front of the arbitrators, and they, we didn't expect to win. We look it up if you want to. I don't overreact to grievances. People grieve, and sometimes people get mad at you, and you deal with it. Sometimes the employee is actually correct when they're grieving something. It isn't as if, mistakes happen and you just have to deal with it. I've been to the State Labor Board, we gave somebody a 3-week suspension. They weren't happy with that. It was kind of unprecedented. And they told me we were going to lose. I didn't bring the attorney with me. I said, I'm not going to waste money on this thing. You know, and we won. They upheld the three-week suspension, and my staff was kind of surprised, but I wasn't. Yeah. And you have to kind of set the tone. When we went to a high deductible health plan, we did it as a volunteer basis the first year. I was the first one to join. You know, so you have to be a leader in terms of if you're going to, you know, press for something you think is right to do, you got to be the first one to do it. How does a town manager prepare budgets to ensure community operates fiscally sound? I'm going to give you some, well, before I hand this out. One of the things that, I don't know why I said that. Well, maybe I will have that. Do I have any volunteers? Anybody from this side want to volunteer? One of the things that the state agencies look for, or the state people look for, is your ability to pay. Ability to pay. And you may think that, hey, I can't pay another dime, but then they are not listening to you. They're looking at statistics. Statistics, one of the biggest statistics that they look at is what's called the adjusted net grand list per capita. How much value of your total land that you have in town divided by the number of people in your town. And that's usually something that, I have some documentation about that as well, for all 169 towns. But Clinton has an adjusted net grand list per capita of about 58,500 per person. You say, well, what does that mean? You're the 69th highest per capita in the state. You're in the top 40%. So what does that mean? That means you're in the lower 40%. You get more money from the state than the top 40%. Plainville is at 34,000. We're at 129. So certainly Clinton's in a lot better shape than Plainville is concerned. See, Coventry, we chose Coventry because if you look at the population of towns, you know, the listing of highest to lowest, Coventry's right next to Clinton. So it's, you know, somewhat comparable. They're at 110 at 43. Mansfield, we did Mansfield because Matt Hart came here and he used to be in Mansfield. And he's in West Hartford now. But anyhow, they're kind of an outlier, so I wouldn't look at Mansfield too much. East Hampton, 52, they're at number 84. Tallinn is at 78. I did put the towns around you just to give you a feel for the adjusted net grand list per capita for the towns around you. And you see Guilford, Killingworth, Madison, Old Saybrook, and Westbrook, and all of those towns ranked very high. Greenwich is probably one.
It's 800,000. We do this a lot.
Yeah. So that's what the state looks at. They're saying, in Clinton, your ability to pay is in the top 40%. So they treat you that way when it comes to grants and whatnot. And you have to understand what you're facing as a community. Second page, just some other statistics. Per capita income, median household income, net current expenditures per pupil, net grand list, and you have your percent of commercial and industrial property. This goes back to the 15 grand list, which is your fiscal year 17 budget. I think that's the latest. You may have later statistics, but basically they haven't changed. They haven't changed all that much. But you know, Clinton's at 13%. You can see the towns around you: Madison 6.2, Westbrook 12.4, Killingworth 2.9, Guilford 7.6, and Old Saybrook 13.5. So I know that economic development is important in this town. Plainville's at 22.4, by the way. So
What is that number?
that's the percent of your grand list that's coded as a commercial or industrial property. That's the value of property. 22% of the property in Plainville is considered commercial or industrial. And they say a comfortable blend is somewhere around 25%. Courtney may disagree with me. We're 25, 30% is a comfortable blend. We're only 10 square miles, so we're all kind of packed in together.
70% residential, 30% commercial industrial is about the state average. And that is a good, solid percentage ratio.
But when people look at the mill rates, and we have people, we have a high mill rate, we have a low mill rate, blah, 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 blah. What I think is important, in my opinion again, is looking at the current year adjusted tax levy per capita, which is what comes in from taxes and how much you pay per person in your town. Okay, how much you expend, how much you spend per person. Generally, That's kind of a measure of your services. Clinton spends a little bit over $3,000 per person based on the adjusted tax levy. That's a state rank of 64. Plainville is at 2470, because every town provides different services. We have a police department in Plainville, you have one in Clinton, you have different pensions. Your pensions are a lot richer than they are in Plainville, I can tell you that right now. I've taken a look at some of your pension stuff. We provide trash collection. You have trash collection in Clinton?
No.
Okay, let me tell you a little something about trash collection. In Plainville, we bid it out. We have a contract that does actually CWFM's located in Plainville, so that's a little bit helpful. And we actually pick up condos as well. But our per unit cost, when it's in your taxes, is about 160, 170 bucks a year. So you know how much you pay for it. Plus, until the new tax code came in, you could deduct it off your taxes because it came through the tax. It was a part of the tax code. You say, well, as long as you're under 10,000 in terms of when you deduct for state and local taxes, then that's fine. But not only is it about half of what you pay otherwise, you can deduct it off your federal income tax. But yet try to implement that in a town, and it's like, I don't want to pay more in taxes. So every town's a little bit different in terms of the services they provide. So it just kind of gives you an idea of how much. I take a look at the current adjusted tax levy per capita. I think that's more of it's something you should at least point to if you're on that people should understand that living in your community. These are some of the things that I show my council members and members of the public as well. The last page, which is kind of interesting, is the mill rate change from fiscal year 14 and fiscal year 19. Now, like I said, everybody provides different services, and I think what's important is not too many people have changed their services from fiscal year 14 to fiscal year 19, so it's really how you're managing your existing budget. Not too many people are putting a lot of new things in, although in Plainville we did, but that's a different story, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But basically, if you take Clinton, and I know that there's revaluation, and revaluation plays a role, but I will tell you that revaluation over, since probably 2008, it's been kind of flat, maybe down a little bit, maybe up a little bit. It doesn't have the wide swings that it used to. But anyhow, Clinton's mill rate change from fiscal year 2014 to 2019 is a change of 5.11 mils, 5.11. But I look at the percentage. The percentage is 20%. So in theory, your mill rate's gone up 20%. Plainville, I probably wouldn't have put this in here if we didn't have the lowest one. Well, I wouldn't have. We're at 7.84%. Coventry, 15%. Mansfield, 10, but again, Mansfield's an outlier. East Hampton, 20%. Tolland, 15, 16%. But look at the richer towns. So when you talk about, town manager makes a lot of money. It's all relative. But, take a look at some of these numbers and sit here and say, well, if we were paying 5% less over 5 years, if we were, Coventry, or, 4% less, or, God bless, Plainville. It adds up to a lot of money after a while. So just to give you a perspective. And I also gave you, for those of you who didn't get it, and I'm kind of proud of this, by the way, this page right here, which gives you a 10-year history of Plainville. And it gives you the town side, the Board of Ed side, and the total budget. I'll be quick. Town, over 10 years, since fiscal year 9 to fiscal year 19, the town government, everything other than the Board of Ed. No, actually, it doesn't include capital, doesn't include debt. But the town side of the budget has gone up 20%, almost 21%. That's an average of 2% a year. Average over 10 years. I think that's a pretty good record. Board of Ed might be a little eye-opener for you here. Total budget has gone up about 15.5%, 15.65%, an average of 1.57% a year. 1.57% a year average over 10 years. Total budget, which includes debt and capital, total budget increase over that time, 14%, an average of 1.4%. Now, I've been in many meetings, many budget meetings, where the same old people get up and say, this is not the year to raise taxes. I think I've heard that 39 straight years. Nobody's ever gotten up and said, this is the year to raise taxes. Anyhow, but what's important to know is what's on the bottom. What's on the bottom is the Social Security increases over a 10-year period and what the rate of inflation has been over a 10-year period. Okay? The rate of inflation over a 10-year period has averaged 1.74% a year. Do the math. I did the math on the right there if you want to. You start with $1 and then you do the percentage increases, which compounds. But the average rate of inflation is 1.74% a year. Average Social Security increase during that same period of time, average 2.1%. What that means is Plainville's going backwards. We have an average of 1.4% on the expenditure side. But yet, we're beating the rate of inflation. We're beating, Social Security. So if somebody gets up at a meeting and says, you guys are overspending, you bring this out, and it helps. Doesn't help 100%, but I'm not here as the manager to convince the idiots. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the idiots, but I'm a manager, and they pick on me all the time. And I don't pick on them publicly, I treat them with respect. And hopefully, I don't see any of them here. Well, it is being filmed, I don't know how much of it's going to be on TV, but you know who you are. But anyhow, I'm not here to convince them. Because their goal is not to do what's right for the town. A lot of it is grandstanding, a lot of it is playing to the camera, a lot of it is, in fact, when they get up to talk to the council, they're looking at the camera, We only give them 3 minutes, by the way. 3 minutes, you talk once. Do you think that's a bad thing? It's actually a good thing, but if you can't get it out in 3 minutes, then, in public hearings it's different, but just, you can say whatever you want at council meetings, but anyhow. But I guess the point is, I'm worried about the people who are listening to the idiots, okay? So I want to get to those people. So this type of information gets to them, so at least we're talking about facts, we're on a factual basis. No. Let's not raise taxes this year, this is not the year to do it. Anyhow. As town manager, ensure community operates business. A couple of things. One is, we stayed on top of the latest strategies for running more efficiently as far as things like purchasing street. Do you own the street lights?
Yes.
Have you converted them to LED?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good point. We did it. I'm sure we did it before you did. So we're saving before you did, but that's a good step. Health insurance options. Do you have high deductible health plans?
I believe so. I'm not an expert on that.
Where you pay everybody? Know what health high deductible? Well, it's a new way of you pick, the employee pays the first $2,000 or $4,000 depending upon whether you're single or family. A lot of towns don't have that.
We do.
Superintendent of schools and I meet with the town council and the Board of Education in joint session in early January to discuss the knowns and the unknowns going forward. This is what we know, this is what we don't know. Review past trends, some of the stuff that we went over tonight, a little bit more detail. And we make projections as we see them. They know what the grand list growth is early on, where it's going to be. Generally, the key is state aid. Clinton gets about 20% of your revenues come from the state. Property tax revenues, the amount of your budget that's raised through property tax, about 76% of your budget. We annually review the fees, building, recreation permits, etc. annually. Some people forget about them. When's the last time we changed those fees? When's the last time we talked about it? Never mind changing. And we get feedback. Superintendent and I, we get feedback from the town council and the Board of Education. Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So let's say we get a town manager. Does that mean we still have to go through multiple rounds of voting on the budget? Or how does that work out? I mean, because we waste so much time and.
I've read your charter. I haven't memorized it. I believe under your charter that there's voting until you approve it.
Right.
Let me tell you how it works in Plainville. See, nobody consulted with, no. You didn't consult me ahead, but it's a big step. It is a big step to get a town manager into your town. Okay, that's the biggest step. Okay, you can't do everything at one time. But let me tell you how it works in Plainville. In Plainville, we get the council, we don't have a board of finance. The council recommends a budget, goes to a vote. It gets voted, we have a separate vote for the town and the Board of Education. Vote on them separately. If both pass, hey, we're all happy, set the mill rate, we go forward. You don't vote on the mill rate, you vote on the expenditure side. You don't vote on the mill rate, we we make sure that we tell people left and right, we're not voting on the mill rate. We can tell you what we estimate it to be, but things can change, and they do sometimes. You vote on the mill rate, and you vote on the expenditure side. If either one goes down, when you vote, there's also an advisory question. It's required by charter. The advisory question is, if you voted no, did you vote no because of too high or too low? So if they both pass, not a problem. If one passes and one fails, the council has to look at the advisory question. If the advisory question says it was too high, you have to come back with that particular budget. Let's say it was the education budget. Just say that, because oh, Jim. Let me just finish the point here, and then that's okay. Am I talking too low? Okay. If the Board of Education budget fails and it's too high, the council has to come back the second time with a lower budget. They're required to lower the budget if the advisory question is too high. If it's too low, they're required to raise the budget. No particular amount. They can lower it or raise it by $1.
Has it ever been too low?
Well, since we've had that in place, all the budgets have passed with about 70%. I mean, how could you vote against a budget that has, 1.4%, average increase, and, Board of Ed averages 1% increase? But not too many people, it's too low. When it's town meeting, sometimes we got a little too, people get upset it's too low. But anyhow, so in the second budget, they have to raise it, and they're creatures of, they're politicians. So if there's a big spread, they cut more. If there's a little spread, they cut less. Second time they come back, just with the education budget, goes up or down. If it goes down, there's another, same question, too high, too low. The council is required to change it again, but it doesn't go back a third time. That's it, the council sets it. It's a good blend. What it does is it gets some information from the taxpayers as far as the budget is concerned. You have to follow their kind of their direction. You get some feedback from them, and then you act accordingly. And it ends. It ends by the time we're in, well, I haven't gone out 2 votes yet since we changed it, but it ends, they set the mill rate, we go forward. And if you don't like the decision, you vote the bums out, in 2 years. They get reelected every 2 years. So they're subject to reelection. Yes, sir.
What is the town manager's role in the budget process regarding the education budget as well as the town budget? What's the town manager's role?
I prepare the budget for the town. I present the budget to the town council. In Plainville, and this is something we did several years ago, we combined the finance department of the Board of Ed with the town. We have one finance manager that's responsible for the town budget and overseeing the Board of Education budget. Basically, paying bills, doing the payroll, taking care of, health insurance issues, all that kind of stuff. It's administrative. That really has very little to do with school. So all that's done by the finance department. We do have a school business manager who reports to the finance director. The school business manager reports to the finance director for monetary side things. So one second. The school business manager does other things for the reports to the superintendent. You had a question.
Yes, I do. And it's not a specific one, it's a generalized one. We don't have a manager. We have, except what all of us knew. Who is doing what the manager will be doing right now?
First selectman.
The first selectman.
Yep.
That's what I thought. Now, when someone comes in as the town manager, he
or she.
Pardon?
He or she. He or she.
Well, okay.
See, the manager needs to be politically correct too. It may not be political, but yes.
All right. There has to be, from my experience of being in business for a good time, some conflict that the first selectman now feels like that he has, I'm going to use some charged words, surrendered a lot to the manager. How do they continue to work together in a positive way for the town?
Well, first off, under your charter, under your proposed charter, You're going to elect a council, and they're going to choose who's going to lead the council. You're not going to choose the first selectman anymore. You're going to choose the council. And they're going to elect who's going to be the chairperson.
That's an important.
That's correct, right?
It is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so we.
So we're not really,
I know, but I wanted to do this. We elect the selectmen. They get together,
well, under the current,
yeah,
There won't
well,
be a
but they would get together and elect the first selectman.
No, there won't be a first one.
there'll be a council.
There'll be a council.
And there'll be a chair of the council.
What would it be?
And they'll have to, they have to accept what's in the charter.
That chair of the council
Where
will
does
have
the
a
buck
reduced
finally
role.
stop in running the town?
The council.
Wow.
Because they
Council.
hire and fire the town
If
manager.
if they're not happy, if they're not happy with me, I'm gone. So the buck stops with them, but I gotta keep them happy.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we have a large Q&A section on our website, which is www.clintoncharterreform.org, and I have the Q&A section printed out, which goes through a lot of these questions, including the fact that, which outlines the fact that there is a town council that elects the chair, that there isn't a surviving, board of selectmen anymore, there's a town council instead. It also answers the question about the referendum on the budget that exists, that survives, rather than, we still have the budget referendum, that continues, and it doesn't. As I say, I have a lot of these questions printed out. They'll be available after the session, but the website exists, www.clintoncharterreform.org, and a lot of these Q&As are there under the section that says questions and answers about charter reform.
Bob, would you like to make a few more points? I think it
Sure.
would be beneficial to get Courtney in the
Sure.
discussion.
In terms of things that we do, that are somewhat on the, we've done a lot of energy efficiency. 3 of our schools have solar panels. We bought our streetlights converted to LED. We consolidated the town and board of it, finance department. That's a big thing. I talk to the superintendent probably on an every other day basis because we have to, because we're kind of working together. We started high deductible health plans. We've restructured debt. We plan capital projects well in advance. We share building inspection services with the city of Bristol. If you haven't heard of virtual net metering, and you're not participating in that yet, then you're missing the opportunity, and there's limited opportunities of virtual net metering. I was also part of an effort to create a captive insurance company with 11 other towns for health insurance stop loss, which control those stop loss costs, which may sound complicated if you're not in the insurance industry, but those are the types of things that we're doing on a daily basis to try to stabilize our mill rate. So I will turn over to Courtney, and then if I have a couple of concluding remarks, if that's okay. Was I talking too long? Was I keeping interrupting enough?
That's
A question on something you said, if this is the appropriate time.
Go ahead.
Is it the appropriate time?
We usually look to the council to see if that's okay. So I look to the council, so.
We got 3 minutes.
You said that you have,
If I just start that one.
you said that you have meetings with the department heads
Weekly, yes.
weekly. Are they open to the public?
No,
Why not?
because it's town department head meeting. Why should it?
Well, the more the public knows, I would think you would feel the better.
Well, we have a part of our meeting, which is called, and I have an assistant to the town manager, a young guy. And he does, during every council meeting, he does what we call happenings. And he gets information from the weekly, and he puts it into the happenings. So we put a lot of things on the webpage. But there are discussions that I have with my directors. It isn't all peaches and cream, I can tell you that, most of the time. And you don't dress down people, individually at a meeting. But there's times when I want to give direction, and I don't want people parsing their words. Because you're probably not the person that's going to show up at the staff meeting, because you're a reasonable guy, and you probably keep, But there are other people who will take something out of context, put it on Facebook, and all I'm spending the next week is trying to correct, incorrectly, skewed, taken out of context information. So I have to be able to talk to my people that work directly for me on a one-on-one basis. I don't stop them from going in and talking to my department heads, or they can come, my open door policy, they come in and see me. But this is for staff. And there's a line drawn somewhere.
And vice versa, I can speak as a department head. I've been an economic developer for many years, and I might want to talk to my boss. He's not my boss in this case, but, you know, if I'm reporting to a town manager, I might have some staffing issues or some other sensitive confidential issues that I want to be talking to my direct boss about, so.
The concern behind the question, the one concern that I have had is what seems to be a backing away from a democratic process of you elect the people who you can unelect. And I understand how you can be unelected as well. The more information that the people of the town have, I have never seen a circumstance where that has been bad. And if we're losing a first selectman or a woman, and losing it to a salaried person who, yes, can be fired,
Yep.
who's having meetings with people who are affecting my life, I want to know what's going on. I think that the first selectman now might not let you know exactly what's happening in those meetings, but I think there's a better chance of it. It's my one worry about this form of government.
Well, I mean, the two responses, and I'll let Courtney speak. One is that I guarantee you, this is a guarantee, this is an opinion, there's more information about what's going on in Plainville that people know about than what's going on.
How do they know it?
They know it because we talk about it all the time. I talk to reporters all the time. We put things on Facebook, and you know, we're just very open about it. Somebody comes in and asks for information, they don't have to spend a week or two waiting for it to come. You know, they want to see a document, it's easy to get a hold of it, you know. And to tell you the truth, we're very frank about what we tell people. We don't try to hide things. We don't try to, you know, whitewash it. Because we feel good about the decisions we make. But staff meetings are staff meetings, and you know, if the expectation is, you know, 100% open, it's not, everybody's going to, what it's going to do is it's going to hold back the directors. They're not going to talk. They're not going to talk to the public. They're not going to be as open as they would be otherwise. Most of the talk goes through, if I'm going to talk to a resident, most of the time the director will say, go talk to the manager. Some of them will say, hey, you can talk to me, that's fine. But some get nervous because, you know, the yahoos, you know, again, they're not looking for the answer. They're looking for you to say something wrong so we can play it and get some airplay out of it. Yes, sir.
So what you're saying is a town manager has a way to guard against political bias.
That's right, yeah. Well, I
That's
think
the
so.
whole point of a town manager, I think.
I'm not worried about running for re-election. I'm not running for re-election. Although, I can tell you this, and it's going to be in my concluding remarks, I have to make people happy every single day, not just on election year.
But isn't that a function of, if there's a political environment that governing, say, the council to an extent that there is a political influences or activity there, that's got to affect in terms of who you're hiring, say, for the public works director or something, or there else.
Not at all. Not at all. Let me tell you why. Because we go through a process. And we tell the council the process we're going to use to hire that person. That process usually involves getting people from other towns to come in and interview the top candidates. So it's not even necessarily done, and they give us 3 top choices. And then I interview them a second time with maybe 1 or 2 of my staff people. And I have a conversation with them, and then I make a recommendation to the council, and I tell them what the process is. Now, the council is really, the council should be, and in my town, they are. They're more concerned about the process than the person that's hired.
But certainly there would be towns that you are familiar with where that is not as.
In town manager towns?
Right.
It depends on how successful you are as a manager. You know, some are better than others. Some are better than others. But I can tell you, generally, in my opinion, town manager will hire, you have less risk of that happening with the manager, because it's under the charter. The charter hires. Now, if we're hiring a public works worker, you know, do I get involved with that? No. I do at the end, because they tell me, hey, we're gonna hire this person, and I check with my staff and say, okay, what process did you get to this? And I can tell you that I'm looking at the Plainville person and saying, how come not the Plainville person and why the Bristol person? So I am sensitive to the fact that if there's, I'm somewhat sensitive to that. But that's not my only criteria. My criteria is best person, best fit.
Do the department heads report to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Police chief, by the way, it's a little strange. The police chief is hired by, sorry, Courtney.
No, that's fine.
Police chief is hired by the council. They make that decision. I oversee how they go through we hired one police chief since I've been in town. It was somebody from out of town. I will tell you, he's the best police chief in Connecticut, bar none. But anyhow, and some of you may know him. He was from Old Saybrook originally. His name was Matthew Catania. He started way a long time ago. But anyhow, he was at Simsbury for a lot of years. But anyhow,
What is the
but he
commissioner?
reports to me. We don't have a police commissioner.
Are the commissioners in the different departments as we have it under the charter right now?
No.
So the commissioners are eliminated, so thus the head of the department reports to you, not to the commissioner.
Right, we have a planning and zoning commission, and we have a staff person that staffs them, but the planner reports to me.
The police chief who was hired by the council still reports to you.
Reports to me. I'm the director of public safety, he's the police chief. He reports to me.
What does the Board of Education report to?
Superintendent. Well, the superintendent reports to the Board of Ed. Board of Ed is responsible to the voters.
And the state.
Courtney, you
Yes.
have a chance to talk
Happy
about the
to, no,
process.
happy to, and I'm gonna echo some of the things that Bob said. I'm an unabashed fan of and proponent for town management. Just a little bit about my background. I too got my master's in public administration and public policy in Texas at the LBJ School, University of Texas in Austin, and then went immediately to work for the city of Austin under the city manager there, who was a very strong city manager, and she said, I need someone to work in economic development, and I had no idea what that was, so I said, sure, sounds like fun, and I immediately went into the Department of Economic Development and sort of worked my way up. I've then since gone to Canada for a few years and then to Connecticut, and here in the last decade have been the economic development director in the town of Farmington for 5 years, and then was the assistant town manager in the town of Enfield for 3.5 years, and then went over to CERC, where I am now, Connecticut Economic Resource Center, and started a municipal practice to help support local economic development in towns and cities all over the state. So I do have a lot of experience, but it's actually nice complementary experience to what Bob has, because I've never been the town manager, but I've been the assistant town manager and a department head. So I can speak on behalf of that sort of other piece that really welcomes the professionalism that comes with a town manager, the education that comes, the ethics, the parameters that are required, the qualifications that are required that are high level, and really, again, just reiterating that it really takes the politics out of the day-to-day administration, and that's something that, especially in economic development, is critical. A lot of town managers and city managers around Connecticut and even all over the country find that economic development becomes a big priority for them. I'm sure Bob would agree with that. And when you can take the politics out of that, you're talking about the relationship between your business community and your town government, how you're supporting your business community, how you're growing it appropriately, how you're really making sure that you're celebrating the character of your community. All of those cool things are when you have a town manager, and if you have economic development department head, or if not, you still have that sort of nonpartisan and professional approach to that. So what I've been asked to talk more about tonight is really the process of hiring the town manager, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my experience and some of the things that I would recommend. So these are questions that came directly from Lynn and the team here, but talking about best practices to attract a highly qualified candidate, and I would say in no uncertain terms that you would want to be using a professional executive search firm. So whether that's a committee that is made up of Clinton residents and businesses, maybe board and commission members, elected and appointed officials, you guys would figure out what that search committee looks like and how that's formed, but that committee could then use the professional services of what you would consider a headhunter or an executive search firm who's going to do a very professional, consistent, thorough vetting, and that what they end up doing literally is they work with you all as a community to get feedback, and what would you like to have in the qualities and characteristics of your town manager, and you would all give input, and they would go back and they would write a very thorough, and I'm talking 5, 6, 7, 10-page long sort of book about the town, about the opportunity, the expectations of the candidate, what kind of experience you're going to require, what kind of qualities you want, or really need to be strong on union negotiations, or we really need to be strong on economic development, or both, or whatever it is, and you're going to say, here are the things we really want to highlight and emphasize. We want X. We want them to have a master's degree. We want them to have X number of years of experience, whatever it is. And then that group will help with the internal committee here to, again, vet the candidates and set those parameters and advertise it broadly. Bob talked about some of the professional associations that we're involved in. There's the Connecticut City Managers Association. There's the International City Management Association. We're involved in the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. They all have newsletters with job search functions that, you advertise the position in those so that it gets out to even a nationwide audience of folks that are going to be highly qualified, that are going to come in and apply for the position. I mean, you heard Bob say he was among 80 candidates. That's what you want. You want a really, really strong, big candidate pool that you can then narrow down consistently. So you're then reviewing it in a nonpartisan way, and what I would recommend, and I'm sure Bob can speak to some of the interview processes that he's been through, but I would recommend, in my own experience, having helped on one of these committees in Enfield, that you want to have that candidate when they're sort of in the very short list, right? You have 2 or 3 that you're really excited about as a community. You're having them interact with your elected bodies, certainly. You're having them interact with citizens, definitely. So they should be giving a presentation. So how are they going to do with the public? They should definitely be interacting with your boards and commissions. Just get feedback from all these groups. What did you think? What did you think? What resonated with you? Make sure that they're even in sort of like an informal setting. We made the Enfield town manager candidates come to a cocktail party with the town council because they just wanted to see, and Bob said it, the fit, right? So, what's the fit of this candidate with, especially the council members at that point, but the current elected officials. And then really, I would say, definitely you want to emphasize ethics, and Bob talked about that, but that's something that's really taken very seriously in our profession. And again, it goes back to the fact that we're all well educated in exactly what town management is. In my experience, I did the internships at the federal level. I did the internships at the state level. It was all really fun to be in DC and be with the senator, but I decided specifically that I cared about local government the most. I love that point that Bob made, because that in your face, that they can walk right into your office and shake their finger in your face. But you can also look around the towns that you've worked in and you can see buildings that came up under your leadership. And it's like so cool. It's in your face government. So that's something that we care about because we're passionate about it. It's what we wanted to do. It's what we've got educated in. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I would just definitely emphasize again, as being myself a high-level department head and then an assistant town manager, I care that the town has a town manager. I care as a senior staff person in the organization and in the community that I'm going to be reporting to someone who has those same high ethics and high qualifications. So that's really what I wanted to say about the process, and I'd be happy to answer questions, and I'm sure Bob will also be happy to answer additional questions too. I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm going to try to conclude quickly if I can.
I just, if I may, I'd like to address Mr. Jones's question over there about the department head meetings.
Yeah.
Those are held here with the first selectman. They're not open to the public. Sometimes a guest will be invited. Various selectmen generally go to these meetings, but it's not. So we're doing the same thing as they do with a different title. It's the same thing. It's not open to the public, and again, it's so they all speak freely. Because you're talking about a lot of internal things. You may be talking about personnel sometimes in a general way, and so I think it's the same thing, Chris. Really.
I'm not completely disappointed.
Okay.
Let me just, economic development, one of the questions was, how's the manager getting involved? I'm just going to run through these quick. You want to ask questions later? I would do it, if I'm a town manager coming into a town like Clinton, I would do a thorough review of the application process, the approval process. Nothing hurts a new business coming into town than time. And the approval process, it takes a long time to get through the approval process. It's easier in Westbrook, guess what? Most of the time they'll go to Westbrook or somewhere else. I would review the tax abatement policies, if you have any, make recommendations on what is the latest trends. I would determine any brownfields issues with the properties. If there's any brownfield, sometimes that you don't know about it, they don't want you to know about it, the property owners, but you got to get in there, dig. If there is, we have resources to deal with that. I would attend Planning and Zoning Commission meetings and Wetland Commission meetings just to get a tenor of the attitude towards development. Sometimes EDC thinks it's great. You go to Planning and Zoning and they tell you to go, you got to have, very small sign, or you got to have 18 parking spaces when you only have 3 customers, things like that, because those are the rules. I would regularly attend the Economic Development Commission meetings. I would review the condition of the public properties in the area of the vacant buildings and lots. What can be done to enhance the area? I think you've done a pretty good job in your downtown as far as enhancing the walkability of the town and whatnot. I would talk to the property owners about their challenges as far as development is concerned. I would make sure that the vacant store properties are listed on the various state sites. Make sure that they're getting the exposure that they may not be aware of. And I generally get involved with the personal touch, which means talk to anyone looking or interested in moving to my town, Plainville. And the thing about the town manager is people that are coming into your town, they want to be very private about what their plans are. They don't want anybody to know about it. And they get a little nervous. My experience has been, it may not be in every town. They're a little afraid to talk to a politician because they're sometimes, it's a different town. I can just say that there's more trust with a town manager. My experience. I'm not saying that's yours. As far as conclusion, the benefits, again, I'll run through them. Some of them are repetitive, but knowledge and experience in town government administration from the start. Council has equal access to information, long-range focus, continuity when there's turnover in the council, experience in solving problems, economic development experience. I mean, every town wants economic. There aren't too many towns that don't want it, so you have experience in that. In my opinion, and I've seen it, you attract better management people, finance directors, chiefs of police, public works, assessors, tax collectors, town clerks, parks and rec, senior center, library. They want to work for a professional manager if they're good, if they're real good. Doesn't mean you can't get a good one somewhere else. I'm just saying that, the tendency. There's little politics with respect to administrative decisions, little or no politics. Grants, administration, used to dealing with the press, that's important, real important. Multitasker, if you're working with local government administration, you're automatically a multitasker from the start. We do a little bit more in succession planning. I mean, I'm not going to be here forever in my town, and I'm already planning for the person who will be available to the council to come in behind me. Doesn't mean they got to choose them, but I'm training a guy right now who will be in a position to run the town should the council want him to. He comes to council meetings, he does reports. They're getting used to him. They may find somebody better, but I'll make sure at least there'll be somebody ready. And you have somebody that's knowledgeable, can answer questions. Someone who has to perform every day. You're not happy with the performance, gone tomorrow. Somebody that keeps the line of communication going with all town council members and staff. Somebody who can interact with the superintendent of schools on a professional basis. This happens in a lot of towns. Probably hasn't happened in Clinton, but when the Board of Finance decides that they're going to reduce the Board of Education's budget, the Board of Education comes out and says, well, looks like we're going to have, if you do that, looks like we're going to have to reduce sports, maybe take out the music program, and the parents jump up and down, and guess what they run to? They run to the town council meeting, and the Board of Selectmen, or the Board of Finance, and they pound their fist on the table and say, how can you do this to our kids? How can you do this to our kids? You're terrible by reducing their budget. My response that I've advised my council to give them, and it's kind of worked in Plainville, is they know that we only control the bottom line. We don't make the decisions, the individual decisions of their budget. Because if we did, we'd probably make a different decision than what they're making. But they know that if they keep pounding on that, there's a certain amount of furor that you can get people riled up. The response from my council is the Board of Education makes the priority decisions with regard to their budget. And what they're telling you is they've now prioritized sports as the lowest priority in the school budget. Everything else in the school budget is more important than sports. Everything else in the Board of Education's budget is more important than music. Guess what happens when you give them that message? They go back to the Board of Education and says, why you got that person over there working? Why do you have, they start questioning the priorities of the Board of Education because the Board of Education has now prioritized sports and music and arts programs as the lowest priority. And the parents don't think that sports, music, and arts should be the lowest priority. And believe me, if they're involved in their schools, they can turn around and tell them, hey, wait a second. Why are you doing it this way? And it can be effective. So, here's my big conclusion.
Drum roll, please. Jim Conley.
Before I get to that, there's a guy raising his hand back there. You don't want me to give the big conclusion.
My question is, the board, the town council, do the members represent segments of the community, or are they elected by the community?
At large.
At large.
At large. You don't want it, in my opinion, you don't want them segments of the community because it's really kind of one community, And again, we're 10 square miles, but most towns, it's when you get into the bigger cities that they start with the wards and whatnot. Okay. Conclusion. If one were to create a form of government today, given today's environment, and said, okay, let's decide how we're going to, manage our community, starting with a clean slate. I can almost guarantee you there would be very little support for the current system. You wouldn't manage things that way. You'd separate administration and policy. Number two, you have, next Tuesday, a big opportunity to move your town forward. Many people say they want change. Then when it comes to make the change, they get cold feet. Because it's different. We don't know. It's unknown. I will tell you this. Those towns that have switched over to the town manager, council manager form of government, and those towns that have had it for a long time, Plainville's had it since 1958, Hebron's had it since 1990, very much been very happy with what has occurred. May not be happy with the manager's occasion and things that have gone on, but by and large, they're happy. Nobody has talked about going back to the old form of government, except for some of the yahoos. But nobody switched. Now there is one city that switched. That was Hartford. They went from a city manager that they had successful for a lot of years, and they went to a strong mayor. Now they're going bankrupt, and the mayor's in jail. No, actually, he's appealing his conviction. Finally, there's an old saying, and I believe it's true in life, it's true. You get what you pay for. You get what you pay for. In this particular instance, hiring a town manager, again, in my opinion, you get more than you pay for. Thank you. If you got any questions or comments?
One question. In your experience, have you ever had, when the town council changes, different, Republican, Democrat comes in and say, oh, that's all wrong, we want to change. How does that affect you? Or do they come to you for advice?
Well, yes, they do come to me for advice. Yes. When I was appointed in Plainville, it was 5-2 Republican majority, and it was pretty wild in Plainville at the time. In fact, people said, don't go to Plainville, they're crazy over there. And I had been at Hebron for 14 years, and I said, I'm ready for a new challenge, and I think I did pretty good. So we went over there. So because the council hired me, they wanted me to be successful, the 5 Republicans. In a very short time, because they were crazy, a little bit crazy, the Democrats took over 2 years later. But because I kept 2 Democrats, I didn't treat them differently than the Republicans, and when the Democrats took over, they were happy, they continued on. And at one time, it was 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, and an unaffiliated or independent party. So I've worked under Democrats, Republicans, no majority, and I've been pretty successful in that.
But that's a testament to Bob's strength too and experience. I mean, there are times certainly when it gets political and they use the town manager sort of as a pawn politically. But again, I mean, the town manager who has the experience and the gravitas and the ability to stay neutral and be as non-political as possible will definitely fare better. So the hope is that they respect, regardless of party, the fact that it's a professional and it's apolitical.
And we keep them informed. We stay ahead. I reach out and talk to them weekly, if not more often. Yes, ma'am.
I'm struggling with this concept, and I think on the one hand, I can absolutely see the value of having somebody who's professionally trained as a public manager. That, to me, is an obvious advantage. But what I also see is the idea of a genuine representational government dissipating, so that it's sort of once removed. And that is problematic in my mind, so it speaks to at least some of the concerns you're raising. So the fact that there would no longer be a first selectman or selectman, but a council member who, as I understand it, is not, this isn't a full-time position for which they're paid, already changes the power structure, like it or not. And so what happens is that that person who, and I would probably argue a bit about the characterization of first selectmen, that's not been my experience, that we know who these people are as best you can because they've campaigned, they live in your community, and so in essence we're handing a greater degree of power determined by the people we've elected who don't have the same degree of control. Yes, they're setting policy, but by virtue of the fact they're not full-time employees, if you will, I think it sets a different sort of value. And so I think that, to me, that's what I'm struggling with, is it's sort of a separation of the degree of representation that the people who are governing our community from what we currently have. So again, I can see some of the values very clearly, and that you do want to have some people who understand the processes, understand management, can deal and negotiate with a variety of kinds of departments. But at the same point, this suggests that those who are already in governance don't have any of those characteristics, and I would argue that some do. And I would also say that we as a community, as citizens of this community, would not be familiar with this individual and would be entirely dependent upon the determination of this council, who doesn't have the same degree of authority. So that's, I just feel I should say up front rather than having a doubt in the air. And if you can counter that, I'd be delighted.
A little bit. First, we're talking about the day-to-day operation. The day-to-day, the administrative. We're not talking about the direction of the community, number one. And you may feel that you have good experience of a first selectman, and they but they are learning on the job when they come in, and there's a lot of lost opportunity when they're learning on the job. And you could get a turkey, and if you get a turkey, and there's been some in Westport, by the way. Not now, but and there's been in other communities as well. And when you get one, you can't get rid of it until the next election, and they can do a lot of damage in a short period of time. So what I talked about earlier was the risk involved, and really it's the amount of tolerance for risk. And if you feel comfortable, hey, it's worked for 100 some odd years, it's worked for a bunch of years. In fact, I'm happy with towns that want to stay with this form of government on a professional level, because I don't have to compete against those people. I'm competing against the other town managers for money, for being the first one at the door to take advantage of certain opportunities. And if you want to stay in second position, that's. And I respect your team. I'm just trying to,
I just want to answer the question, just to what we've been grouped to put this thing together. I have the same kind of concern as you do on this about how this thing works. It puts a tremendous amount of the onus on who goes on that town council. And right now, sorry, selectmen friends or whatever, but it's pretty much the DTC and the RTC picks a bunch of people to run at the end of every year. That's got to change. There's got to be a much more rigorous vetting and more rigorous of who should really be on the town council than what we've been doing since Abel Buell was here. I mean, there's got to be some way that those 7 people, because you're right, we're removing the direct responsibility away by a lever. Well, we're layering somebody in effect. But it can't be the same, who wants to run for selectmen this year? I remember the RTC, I won't speak for the DTC, but I've seen the results over the last 13 years. We need better people, more qualified people to be on that town council, because they do have a larger responsibility, because they're going to have somebody like that managing the town.
Then what guarantees in this new system?
That's up to this. That's up to the town itself to somehow, and if this happens, this happens next week, the next big charge is to make sure that the process by which we elect a town council is better than what we've been doing for the last 20 or 30 years. It can't just be a popularity contest. It can't be the same old people that have been running it for the last...
But then you could argue, if that's what needs to be done in order to affect a positive change, then you can argue, well, why can't we look at the current system as it is without...
I think it's completely broken. I've been part of it.
Well, let me
I just see who raises their hand and they're on a commission right now.
Let me give you a perspective. And I've been a student, again, I've been involved in Connecticut towns, and I look what other towns do.
No, I'm just scratching my head.
Thought it was a secret law. No. My experience has been that there are people who don't want to be on the town council, they don't want to put up with the BS of complaints, they don't want to be solving the day-to-day problems, they don't want to be involved. And my experience has been that the better qualified people, council people, want a manager so that they don't have to put up with the BS. I get the blame when things go wrong, they get the kudos when things go right. That's just the reality. And you know, and like I said, I think you get it, again, you get the opportunity to get a better quality person because a lot of people don't want to put up with the stuff that goes on a day-to-day basis. I'm just talking in general terms of my experience. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll start by saying, on Tuesday, I'm voting yes. Now, no.
Oh, go ahead. I thought you were done.
I wanted to get on your good
But is your wife gonna vote yes?
Yeah,
All right, go ahead.
Okay. It seems a little bit like pie in the sky, because I've heard more than one time partisanship, and it's theoretically, with this type of an operation that I'm going to put on, there's going to be a lot less partisan. But there is going to be a council. And the council is going to be voted by the people. And being human, everybody that gets elected on the council is going to have some sort of a bias. I mean, we just have to watch what's going on with national publics, you know. Now, what I'm painting an exaggerative situation, but what if you are the town manager and there's an election of the council, and all of those people who are elected on the council, this is a real stretch, really don't like one thing you've been doing.
Well, there's a couple things. First off, if they don't like what I'm doing, there's a good chance that I don't like what they're doing.
You go, oh, yeah,
And
absolutely.
I don't want to work in a town, as a manager, and many of us are, I start dusting up my resume and you know, and looking for another job. So, you know, we're not going to stay where we're not wanted. But I will tell you that there's a lot of people who come in with an agenda.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who get elected to the that I've experienced both in Hebron, in East Hampton to a certain degree, and in Plainville. And I can tell you, it's a lot different sitting out there than it is sitting up there.
Oh, yeah.
And and I will help them understand why we do what we do. And I can tell you that in a lot of instances, the agenda changes of the person who comes on because now they know, you know, they have more information. A lot of people have opinions and they don't have the facts. And in fact, I say to people sometimes, we don't want the facts to get in the way of your opinion. I know that, but you know, here are the facts. And then, you know, I like the facts to come first, then the opinion.
You don't want any fake news.
Well,
You know, after listening to actually some of these doubts and suspicions about the council, I came in here with an open mind tonight. I'm actually more convinced that the town manager makes up for whatever weaknesses or vicissitudes that you have in the town council. Because everybody wants somebody that's going to make them look good. If I'm on the town council, I want a town manager that's going to make me look good. Otherwise, there's something wrong with me. I mean, that's the way it is. If I'm a manager in a department, I want employees that are going to make me look good. So if you have a council form, and let's say it's somebody that is from the old school of politics, he's on there, he can tell whether somebody's gonna make him look good or not. Because these people that get involved in politics, you know, they like to go in their neighborhoods and have their neighbors look at them and say, oh, there's such and such, he's doing a good job as on the council, or the select person, or whatever it is. So that's actually,
Oh, it's a team effort. It's definitely a team effort.
yeah.
You know,
But the town manager, if he does a good job, the council looks good, no matter what they are. That's the way it appears to me.
and I want them.
Sure.
I want them to get.
So the first time around, we go for the council, there's just the town council, then they have to go through a process to hire a manager, right? How do we get the first manager?
Well, they'll make the appointment, right?
If I may.
No, not this year.
The current Board of Selectmen, which I'm a member of, and Tim Guare is a member of, and our first selectman is back there, hiding in the back. The current Board of Selectmen will manage a search process for a list of town managers. And the way the proposal is written in the charter, that list will then be moved to the newly elected town council, because the outgoing Board of Selectmen, and selectmen and council are very similar responsibilities, so don't think there's a lot of difference. There's hardly any, really. So the Board of Selectmen, with the professional help and a search committee, will boil it down to, let's say, finalists. And the way it's written in the charter proposal, they'll give it to the newly elected town council, because the outgoing can't hire anybody. And the way it's written, they have to pick from that list. Because some people, when we're writing the proposal, I shouldn't say we, but the Charter Revision Commission, realized that somebody may want to, oh no, I know Joe or Sally over here, and the hell with the qualifications, we'll go pick them. They have to pick from this qualified group.
So the person wouldn't get appointed until after next November.
Right, yeah. They wouldn't get hired till
After next November.
it's
The new council.
November 2019. Now, the other thing I would point out is that, and I've been part of this process for quite a while now, you really don't get much choice, because these party committees, of which I've been a member of, no longer, but they pick people who are in their little clique, and they're friends, and they agree with each other on everything, and they're their own little echo chamber. So each party comes up with one person each. Let's say for the first selectman. You don't have any choice in this. So now you get to pick from who they pick, 2 people. Instead of the 80 highly qualified people you get to choose from, you get to choose A or B, and they might both be bad choices. I'm going to say, and not because she's here, I think we have a good first selectman right now. But I think that's rare, because it's a crapshoot who you get. And just as proof, I ran for first selectman.
Well, you didn't win.
Well, I didn't win. People didn't know me well enough. No, but what the hell business do I have to be first selectman? I was out of my mind to even try it. You know why I ran? Because nobody else in the party would run.
That's right.
And this happens in both parties often. It happened in the Republican Party, I know, at least twice. That's how we got our last first selectman. Nobody else would run. Oh, hell, I'll do it. That's no way to pick somebody. So I think I agree with John Allen. The current system is broken. You got to ask yourself, do you like the way the town is now, the way it looks, the way it's run, the whatever taxes, whatever your issue is, the schools? I can't believe anybody would say they like how it is. It's just, it's not modern. It's not functioning the way it should.
Well, Phil, on paper, it looks like democracy. In reality, it's a combination of chaos and cronyism.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that.
2 clubs.
Yeah.
And I just want to
Chaos and
finish.
cronyism.
I want to finish with one thing. Now, that doesn't mean it's the end of the meeting by any means. I lived in Plainville with my family for 26 years before Bob was there. And I was on 2 charter revisions. I ran for council there, other boards. And I always felt it was a well-run town, good processes, well-oiled machine. I could go in and talk, and I agree with Bob, I could go in and talk to the town manager anytime I wanted. Of course, I made sure he knew who the hell I was, because I probably thought I was a big shot, which I wasn't. But it's open door, but you get the professional management, and as Bob said, if you don't like him, out he goes, you know. But if you get a bad first selectman, minimum, you're stuck with him for 2 years. And there's no guarantee you'll get a good one after that. And the damage can be done and has been done to Clinton is enormous. Forget about the few extra $1,000 you're gonna have to pay a town manager versus a first selectman. To me, there's no choice.
It's tough to measure lost opportunity. It's really tough.
Right, it's opportunity cost.
And I will tell you, there were 80 people who I competed against in 1990. I will tell you that probably 40 of them weren't qualified, by the way, so it was, you know. But they put in an application. Yes, sir.
You referred to your staff in Plainville, correct? How many are there, and who chose them, and are they salaried?
My direct reports are salaried. Most of them I've chosen since I've been there 15 years. There's some that are holdover. And I chose the people who work directly for me, except for the police chief, who was chosen by the council, so it reports directly to me.
So you're referring to a police chief as your staff?
Yeah, and we have, on the town side, we have about 115 full-time employees, which includes a police department of about 39 sworn officers. We're located between New Britain and Bristol. So to get to Bristol or New Britain, you gotta come through Plainville. And so we have a unique set of circumstances in terms of, you know, police, and we, you know, they're also our first responders. When you dial 911, you need somebody to take care of you, police to come there first, maybe the ambulance comes in second.
You still have a volunteer fire
We
department?
still have a volunteer fire department, we're very proud of it. The fire chief is appointed by the council, but he's a volunteer, he gets a stipend. When he has it, we have a liaison to the fire department. The council has liaisons to all the commissions and whatnot that they're responsible to oversee, including the fire department and the police department. So there is a liaison to the police department from the town council directly, as well as the fire department. When the chief has an issue, he either goes to the council person or he comes to me. And if it gets complicated, if he goes to the council person first, the council person comes to me. So, you know, for issues to take care of. Because they really don't want to get stuck taking care of the day-to-day issues. So show us what the options are, and then we'll choose the options. If I don't give you the good options, guess what? I'm looking for another job.
There's been 5 of us, I think, at the various 3 forums.
Yes.
So just an indication of how much experience and knowledge there is out there in terms of the process. There's a lot of different ways that some of these things can be shaped and structured. So I would just encourage you all, if you end up going forward with this model, just to really draw upon the experience that's already in the state, where, you know, you can play around with different options within the model, and you can certainly call upon any of us in the field to help you just sort of bounce things off of, and we can certainly give our opinion on it.
One last thing. When I left Hebron, 7,000 people, you know, and people would say too small a town, but, you know, when I left and they advertised the position to follow me, they had some finalists. One of the finalists was an assistant and a young guy. And they had other people that had town manager experience, and I advised them to hire the assistant. And but they didn't take my advice. And, you know, that's okay. They hired the person with the best qualifications. Okay, that person only lasted like 1.5 years because it's a small town. They were used to having staff, and they weren't used to, you know, they're on the tail end of their career and those kinds of things. That assistant town manager is now the town manager of Avon. Okay. Now, a couple years later, after that person left, they went through the process again. There was a young gun from Mansfield who applied for the job, and I advised them, because I still was in the Lions Club, and I still, you know, and I said, you know, I called up, you know, who I thought was it. I said, you know, we really want to take a look at this guy. And they, you know, interviewed him. They gave him the time of day, and they hired somebody who was more experienced, had a better resume, and that person only lasted about 3 or 4 years. I mean, this person had a great resume, all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't the right fit. That assistant town manager is now the town manager of West Hartford. Okay, so the young guns are hungry, and they want to come in, and they got experience, And, you know, so it's not all about the resume.
I want to thank Bob, I want to thank Courtney, and I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This was so informative, great questions. This is democracy, this is a process. If you've made up your mind and you would like to vote for a town manager, on the ballot, we have these hand cards. Vote yes on question 3, skip question 4. The other thing that I need to let you know is that the ballots are not going to be counted on election day. They're going to be counted on Saturday the 10th.
For the referendum only? Just for the questions?
Just for the questions, not what's going on with your other vote. And so don't expect to know until Saturday. And check the website. And you know, if you have conversations with neighbors over the weekend and so on, if they're unaware, you know, introduce them to the process. Let them know about our website. Check it all out. We have so much information for folks. And so again, it's clintoncharterreform.org. At most any question that someone has can be.
And all these videos are on it. Every one of the sessions will be on it.
Thank you, Kurt, for filming this.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
And so to our tonight.
We'll see you on the water.
This video provided as a public service by Kirk Carr, the Kirkster. Thank you for watching.